15, my fencing teacher told me that I had natural talent. You have no idea how happy this made me to hear that. He told me that my form was good, and in my head I was holding a sword as beautifully as if I'd been born with it. I was a horribly unathletic kid, the last to be picked for every elementary school dodgeball team. Deep down, I always wanted to hear somebody say, "Kristine, you're a soccer goddess, a kickball queen. We've never seen anyone dribble a basketball like that before." But that never happened because I was so spectacularly untalented at almost every sport on the planet. In middle school, my perfect 4.0 GPA went down to a 3 something because I somehow managed to get a B in PE. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, I was a nerd, so I was devastated. And the year after that, I took an extra math class to get out of doing PE. I didn't like to do things that I knew I was bad at. There's something mythical about athletics and talent. It just seems like something you're born with. Some people are just taller, stronger, faster, better at sports. And I wasn't one of them. So here I was thinking, maybe I finally found it. Maybe fencing is my thing. So my coaches encouraged me to do tournaments, and that's where it all went wrong. Because in order to get better at fencing, you have to lose. Hypothetically, you could be extremely awesome and just win your first few tournaments without a scratch. But eventually, in order to keep going up in the fencing world, you have to fight people that are better than you. You don't learn anything by sparring with the people that you can easily beat. Losing is part of the learning process. And I couldn't do it. I didn't like to lose. In fact, every time I did lose, I cried at a tournament, which was really embarrassing. My coaches encouraged me. They said, "You're good, keep working, keep trying." And I was like, no, I don't like the feeling of having my ass kicked. But one day that changed. So I trained and I trained until I reached the highest rank possible in US fencing. Just kidding, that never happened. I wish it did. What actually happened is I did 2 or 3 more tournaments. I cried every time I lost, got into college, and then I stopped fencing. But actually, this talk isn't really about fencing. It's about engineering, because I failed at fencing. I failed to do anything in an area where I actually had natural talent, and a lot of mentors who were willing to help me develop it. This talk could also be called How to Become a Software Engineer When You Were a History Major in College and You Don't Know Anything About Computers besides being really, really pro at Microsoft Word. This is my story of how I graduated college with the wrong major, and I said to myself, this isn't where I want to be in life, so how do I completely change what I've been doing? In order to do this, I had to look in the mirror, figure out, drop everything that was holding me back, ego, pride, fear, and turn my weaknesses into strengths. So back to fencing and my fear of weakness. Fast forward 6 years, the same attitude just kept holding me back in life. I was 21 years old and I just graduated from UC Berkeley with a double major in history and biology. I had a great GPA, high honors, and 0 job offers. I was kind of devastated. I did 2 or 3 maybe job interviews. I didn't get either, and I became discouraged and gave up. Kind of like what happened with fencing. But you can't just not get a job. Everybody kind of needs money. I had health issues, and with no job, I had no health insurance. So I sat down to re-examine myself. How had things gone so wrong? My entire life, I'd been praised for being gifted, for being smart, for being kind to others. I was a National Merit Scholar. But the universe was telling me that I wasn't good enough, that this wasn't enough, and that was my worst fear. I felt like I was sinking, not swimming for the first time in life, and I had no idea why. Until I sat down and I realized, my entire life I had been so incredibly afraid of being weak. I was so afraid to fail that it paralyzed me. Subconsciously, this meant I always avoided doing anything that I knew I was bad at. So in psychology, this is what is known as fixed mindset. When somebody has fixed mindset, they believe that the abilities that they're born with are fixed for life. So you might say, who the hell actually believes this? But it's really a belief, a mindset that underlies a lot of common beliefs. For example, whenever you praise somebody for natural talent, you're actually encouraging fixed mindset. Or if you believe that people are successful just because they're intelligent, or if you believe in prodigies that happen to be born with these extraordinary abilities, that's all fixed mindset. The opposite is growth mindset. So when you believe that you can do anything you put your mind to, you're thinking with a growth mindset. This also involves realizing that effort, hard work, and persistence can sometimes pay off much more than natural talent. So it's not that anything is wrong with fixed mindset, because genetics does really play a role in what you can achieve. But for me, it was limiting my worldview. I wasn't taking risks, and I wasn't constantly improved because I didn't actually believe that I could really get much better at anything. Anyway, so at the time, I didn't know that there was anything wrong with how I was thinking. I just knew that I'd gone from being the successful student to a complete failure of an adult. Here was my first weakness. I never did anything unless I knew for sure that I was good at it. I looked back at why I studied history, for example. Early on in a history class, a TA came up to me and she said, "Kristine, this essay is so amazing. You should be a writer." I was like, yeah, I could be. Because when you're 18, do you really know what you want to do for the rest of your life? It made me feel so much more confident to be praised. And so I decided to stay in my comfort zone. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I realized I had to try something I didn't know for sure that I was good at, and that turned out to be computer science. Because in my head, I was thinking, well, I wasn't getting a job with either of my previous degrees, so maybe that's more my true calling. Maybe I was really meant to be a brilliant computer scientist. Take that, people that wouldn't give me a job. I was broke at this point, but I took the remainder of my money and I enrolled in UC Berkeley's summer computer science class to take a shot at it. And boy, that class was freaking hard. It turned out everyone there already knew how to program. And those who didn't mostly dropped the class in the first 2 weeks. Computer science is one of those areas where you get a lot of actual prodigies. These are people that at a young age teach themselves how to code, maybe building their first HTML website or breaking into a poorly secured government database. That wasn't me. It's also a really logical and mathematical field. And for me, math is a little bit of a weakness. Like, I'm kind of ADHD. Like, sometimes I'll start adding 2 and 2, and in the middle of that, my brain goes, look, an ice cream truck. And then I forget what I was doing, so I add 2 again, and I come up with something really weird. So I wasn't a computer science prodigy, I wasn't a math prodigy, and things were getting harder and harder. I bombed the first test, which had never happened to me. There were a lot of long nights of staying up and swearing at my code when it didn't work. It didn't help any at all. I would go and cry to my ex about it, pressing enter 50 times, and then one more time just to see if on the 51st time, something that wasn't working before had magically fixed itself. It never had. But for the first time, I had found something that really inspired persistence in me. I sat down and I realized, even if I'm terrible at this thing now, I don't have to stay terrible. The harder I worked, the better I got. And I found out how much more rewarding it is to succeed at something, even if nobody believes in you and is cheering you on and telling you that it's your true calling. From this experience, I found out something really important that has helped me in overcoming obstacles in all areas of life. You're never really weak at anything. It's easy to say, oh, I'm just not good at math, or I'm not good with people, or I'm not a natural athlete. But these are just excuses. Your areas of weakness are really areas that you just haven't put enough time and energy into yet. They're hidden strengths, waiting for you to sit down and take the time to develop those skills. So anyway, I ended up doing okay in that class. I survived, and I decided to come back to UC Berkeley, to the iSchool for another degree to learn more about computers. And at this point, my parents are probably going, why are you still in school? But I learned to love being challenged. And being an underdog was kind of addictive. But the more advanced I got, the easier things were, until one day I thought, hey, let's sign up for this machine learning class. That sounds fun. I didn't even know what machine learning was. It sounded like robots or something, and who doesn't like robots? Well, anyway, it turns out machine learning is actually a math class in disguise. It's a lot of linear algebra, probability theory, sprinkling of multivariate calculus. In short, math you don't know if you were once a history major. And it's a really stupid idea to try to do machine learning if you don't have the right math background. The best analogy I can come up with, it's kind of like trying to take a French literature class that's taught in French without actually knowing French. So the entire time, everyone's discussing texts in French and reading it and saying things en français, and the whole time you're just going like, what did you say? Anyway, that was me. So I would walk into this class every day and not know anything that was going on. The professor would be writing these weird symbols on the board, and I probably understood maybe like 10% of what he was saying. It was also intimidating for me that I was probably one of the only girls in the class. There were 5% girls. I used to count the number of girls in the class whenever I got bored. I didn't know what was going on. And all of these guys would also wear these free t-shirts that tech companies give out at career events. And just to feel a little bit better about myself, I too started to wear these free tech t-shirts to class. Just so you know, the professor asked the question like, does anyone here not know what a convolution is? And there's like 2 of us raising our hands in the back. I might have looked like an idiot, but at least I was dressed properly. And he was a really nice professor. He did explain what a convolution is, and hopefully I'll never forget that. So the whole time I kept doubting myself. I was like, am I smart enough for this class? Am I good enough? And maybe the problem is because I'm a girl, and girls aren't as good at higher level math, is what they always say. But eventually I made it through the class with an A, which is a miracle. I was not expecting that. But not because I magically learned everything on my own, or even because I worked really, really hard, even though I did. It's because I had help. And now for everyone who is afraid of looking weak, asking for help is like the worst thing you can do. Like the old me would have been like, why not just jump off a cliff rather than admit you don't know what's going on? But the new me had like no shame. So I asked for a lot of help. And I had a friend in the class, my friend named Kiet from Discrete Math, and he was my project partner. And he was the one that made a big difference because he answered all of my stupid questions, like what's that like squiggly line mean? He like basically dragged me to the finish line. And in the end, through this class, I just ended up learning a lot of math. I was able to take other classes on my own and eventually get job offers related to machine learning. So from this experience, I learned that asking for help isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just a faster way to learn. It's a way to get to talk to an expert, get to know them better, like learn from their knowledge. The world is made of such incredible people with a wealth of knowledge, and each of us individually only has a limited amount of time and energy. So together, the more we can learn from one another, the faster as a society we can make progress. Oh, my slides are there. Wow, I had no idea. Okay, thank you, somebody. Anyway, I got tired of drawing these with the mouse, so like there's just one more slide. Long story short, my story doesn't really have a happy ending. Mostly happily because it hasn't ended yet. I got a degree, I learned a lot of computer science and math. I spent a lot of nights crying over the fact that I'd wasted so much time studying the wrong thing. It took a lot of freaking time to do my majors. I always thought that I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't smart enough to do everything that I wanted to do. And even beyond classes, it didn't really get that much easier. Tech interviewers would always look at me with my weird resume, and then the next kid in line who had an actual computer science degree. And guess who got the interview? So that made me really annoyed, and I was always talking myself up to sound better just to even be considered. But now that I've been a software engineer for 2 years at 2 different companies, I found that things have kind of changed. My weird, non-traditional background is actually now more of an asset than a liability. The history major is a badge of honor. Whenever interviewers look at me now, they realize that in order to get to to where I am, I had to be extra motivated, even more of a fast learner, probably even more annoying too, which I am sometimes. So even now, I still feel like there's probably a lot of things that I can't do. I did finally turn one of my weaknesses into strengths, but I still feel sometimes that I'm not pretty enough, not smart enough, not good enough to do everything that I want to do. But the difference is now I've learned that no good ever comes of being too afraid to try. Because if you haven't tried, you haven't failed. And if you haven't failed, then you haven't grown. And in my opinion, if you've never grown, then you aren't really living life. Some of you too may feel sometimes that you're not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough to do everything that you want to do. But I challenge you to go out and find as many ways as possible to fail every day. Because through failure, you will start to grow. And once you've grown, you will have truly turned your weaknesses into strength. Thanks for listening, guys. I lied. There's one more slide. So if you enjoyed this talk, which hopefully you did, here are 3 related books and one movie, because who doesn't like movies?